So have you ever had that feeling like you're just going about your day, your week, your whole life maybe, and it just feels like you're constantly navigating this maze of expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you're trying to figure out what everyone else wants.
Exactly. And you find yourself kind of twisting yourself even just a little bit to fit in, or worrying if you measure up.
Or that background noise, that anxiety about being judged.
Yes. It's like carrying this invisible weight, isn't
Yeah.
it? All that effort trying to prove yourself, get approval, control how people see you.
It really is. And it's surprisingly common, that human tendency to focus outwards,
Right.
measuring ourselves against these like invisible rulers we think others are holding up.
Or ones we just imagine are there.
Yeah, exactly. And the sheer amount of energy we pour into managing those impressions, it's huge.
It really is. We get so caught up in things that, honestly, when you step back, maybe don't add much to our actual, peace of mind or happiness. But what if? What if that very focus, that intense caring about what others think and trying to control everything?
Yeah.
What if that's actually the thing causing the struggle?
Well, that really gets to the heart of the ideas we were looking at. It taps into insights from Michel de Montaigne, a thinker from centuries back.
Okay.
He really dug into this whole human condition,
Right.
and he explored this fascinating paradox. What if the way to feel more confident, more at ease, even more successful,
Yeah.
what if it comes not from gripping things tighter, but actually from learning to let go?
Letting go. That sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe even like giving up.
It can feel that way at first, like it goes against everything we're told about striving, achieving, pushing harder.
Right.
But that's where the nuance comes in, based on these reflections. It's not about just becoming passive or indifferent.
Okay. So not apathy.
No, not at all. It's about a very specific kind of detachment. It's about freeing yourself from that constant grinding need for approval. Releasing the hold that fear of judgment has on you, stepping back from like constantly overanalyzing everything or trying to force outcomes.
So it's more about shifting where you find your sense of worth, like
Yeah.
inside rather than outside.
Exactly. Choosing to root your worth, your direction in something internal instead of always chasing it out there in the world.
So looking at it from this perspective,
Yeah.
instead of being pushed around by all that external pressure, Montaigne seems to be asking, well, what happens if we just dial down how much we care about those outward things?
And based on these ideas, he suggests something quite profound happens. When you release that need to seem perfect, you actually, paradoxically, start embracing who you really are, flaws and all.
Huh.
When you stop chasing validation from everyone else, you free yourself up to live more authentically, guided by what you feel matters.
Right.
And when you stop trying to micromanage every single little thing in life, you kind of create space. Space for things to unfold, often in surprisingly good ways.
That's where it gets really interesting thinking about this. The less you need that external validation, the more inner strength you seem to build up. Think about people you know who seem genuinely comfortable in their own skin. Are they frantically looking for approval?
Usually not, right? They have this sort of quiet confidence.
Exactly. A confidence that seems to come from not needing to put on a show for others.
And what's really striking is how clearly this perspective, even though it's centuries old, kind of anticipates modern ideas about authenticity and, personal power.
Yeah.
The thinking suggests that when you shed that weight of trying to be someone you're not just to please others, when you accept yourself fully, there's almost a natural magnetism that comes out.
It's not like you're trying to be magnetic.
No, it's just a side effect almost of being genuinely free from that burden of needing everyone to like you.
And then there's the fear part. The moment you detach from that paralyzing fear of failure or constant judgment, you gain something huge.
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Freedom to try stuff without that inner critic screaming at you. Freedom to say what you think without agonizing for hours about how it landed. Freedom to just be without constantly checking if you're meeting some standard.
And this freedom, it's interesting, it doesn't usually lead to chaos. Often it's the opposite.
How so?
Well, as suggested here, when you let go of those unnecessary anxieties, you don't just find more inner peace. Your actual interactions and experiences can improve.
Okay.
Relationships might get deeper because they're not based on you trying to control the other person or needing them to be a certain way.
You're not placing demands.
Exactly. Opportunities might just show up more naturally because you're more open, less constricted by fear. Decisions become clearer because they're coming from your genuine values, not what you think society says you should value.
It feels like a fundamental shift in orientation. Like this perspective suggests a lot of our struggle comes from fighting reality, trying to cram life and ourselves into these rigid boxes.
Yeah.
When you let go of that resistance, things just seem to find a more natural flow.
Think about just the mental energy saved. All that time spent anticipating bad reactions, replaying conversations in your head, judging how you did.
Oh, yeah. Or living by expectations that weren't even yours in the first place.
Yeah.
Someone else's idea of success or happiness.
Exactly. This Montaigne perspective really invites us to step back from those limits we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It challenges us to embrace a bit of uncertainty, accept imperfection in ourselves, sure, but also just in the world, and stop letting fear call all the shots.
The material points out how many pressures we feel are almost like illusions sometimes, products of how we were raised, or just our own worried minds working overtime.
And there's this understanding that, look, humans are kind of wired to worry. We try to control the future, which is, well, uncontrollable.
Right.
But the wisdom here isn't about figuring out how to solve every single problem perfectly. It's more about learning to surrender to the basic truth that some things are just beyond our control.
And that really applies to how we relate to other people, too. That came through quite clearly. A key takeaway seems to be, the world might never fully understand you. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. It's not actually a problem that needs solving.
Right. We can waste so much energy trying to explain ourselves, justify our choices, prove our worth to people who maybe just aren't ever going to see it from our angle.
Yeah, holding back what you really think to avoid an argument, or suppressing what you want just to fit in. Constantly looking outside for permission, for validation.
But the only validation that really sticks, that sustains you, it has to come from inside.
That seems to be the core message.
And this is where you see the suffering, right? Caring too much about stuff that doesn't really serve you. Holding on to fears, insecurities, even old grudges about things that, from a distance, seem pretty small.
It's that striking paradox again, isn't it? Have you ever noticed how sometimes the moment you stop desperately chasing a solution,
Yeah.
an answer just kind of appears? Or you stop needing someone's attention and suddenly they seem more engaged?
Totally. It feels backwards, but it happens.
When you genuinely let go of needing to force a specific outcome, life just seems to flow differently around that space you've created.
I think some people hear letting go, and they resist because they think it means being apathetic or, lazy, just giving up.
Right, we touched on that, but as we've been discussing, the material really shows it's not about that at all. It's about strategically shifting your focus, your energy.
Towards what actually matters to you.
Exactly, and freeing yourself from the burdens that just drain you without giving anything back.
Montaigne seemed to encourage embracing imperfection not just in us, but in life itself, how it's unpredictable.
Yeah. Trying to control everything, it's exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
And it's unwinnable, fundamentally, because life is uncertain. No amount of planning or worrying can nail down every variable.
So instead of fighting that current,
The suggestion is more to lean into it, accept life as it is, mistakes, setbacks, confusion. It's all just part of the deal, part of the human journey.
think how much lighter you'd feel if you just stopped trying to orchestrate every single detail, stopped second-guessing every move, stopped seeing every misstep as some kind of disaster.
And instead just saw it as, okay, that's the next step. What now?
Looking at the material, it seems like big leaps forward, whether in thinking or just in life, often came from people who weren't paralyzed by fear of failure or judgment.
They moved forward. Maybe they felt the sting initially, sure, but ultimately they weren't carrying that heavy burden of needing constant applause from the outside. They understood that just being authentic had its own kind of power.
And when you start living more like that, people actually notice it, don't they?
I think so. You seem more grounded, more present, more genuinely in charge of your own responses, your own direction.
Not by forcing your will onto the world.
No, but by no longer letting external pressures completely dictate your inner state. The material implies that people who seem, effortlessly successful often have this internal detachment from the unnecessary worries.
So they can channel their energy effectively towards what matters.
Right.
So it becomes this cycle then. The more you release the unnecessary stuff, the more capacity you have for the things that are actually meaningful. Stop fearing failure, you get bolder. Stop needing approval, you become more yourself. Stop trying to control everything, and maybe you open up to surprising opportunities.
It really is about claiming your own freedom. Directing your energy towards what feels genuinely meaningful to you and just refusing to get sidetracked by distractions that don't hold any real value in the end.
It's like shedding mental chains, really.
Exactly. The past is gone. We can't change it. The future is inherently unknowable no matter how much we plan. The only place we truly operate is right now, in the present.
Yeah.
And embracing that truth, as Explore Here, can shift, well, pretty much everything.
And this detachment, it comes up again paradoxically.
Right.
It can actually lead to deeper, more authentic connections with other people.
That's a recurring theme, isn't it?
Yeah. The moment you stop needing something specific from a relationship, whether it's constant validation or control or reassurance, it often seems to breathe better, to flourish more genuinely.
Stop chasing approval. Maybe people respect you more naturally. Stop fearing abandonment. Your own presence becomes more solid, less needy.
Stop trying to force others into your box of expectations.
And you create space for genuine acceptance of them and maybe of yourself, too.
That point feels particularly deep, looking at this perspective. Detachment isn't about cutting yourself off or escaping interaction.
No, it's presented more as a path towards more real connection, more fulfillment.
By letting go of trying to force things, you open yourself up to the natural rhythm, finding a different kind of peace, maybe even a different kind of power within that flow. So why is this all so hard then, if it leads to good things?
Well, fear, probably. Fear of the unknown. If we loosen our grip, will everything just fall apart?
Yeah. Fear we won't be enough without that constant external pat on the back.
There's definitely a narrative in society that equates control with security. But these ideas challenge that, suggesting that control is often just an illusion, and one that traps us.
Right. True connection with people based on these insights, it isn't about control at all. It's built on acceptance.
Acceptance of them and acceptance of yourself. The more you can just allow others to be who they are without needing them to fit your script.
Or needing constant reassurance from them.
The more genuine and probably more stable your relationships can become. People who cultivate this kind of detachment often seem to have more ease, more respect in their connections.
Why? Because they aren't burdened by constant demands or anxieties about how they're coming across.
I think so. They just sort of exist with a calm confidence that gives other people space to be themselves too.
And that mirrors how we relate to ourselves, doesn't it? How we interact with others often reflects our own inner state.
Definitely.
If we're always seeking validation outside, it probably means we haven't fully accepted ourselves inside.
Or if we need others to act a certain way just so we can feel secure, it points to a lack of inner stability.
So shifting that focus inward, working on that internal foundation, that seems to be the real key to unlocking this kind of freedom.
Think about the emotional energy we spend just reacting. Reacting to a casual remark somebody made.
Oh yeah, letting someone's perceived opinion completely derail your mood for hours.
Or holding on to resentments that honestly serve no purpose anymore. The material strongly suggests that real peace comes from cultivating an inner state that's just less dependent on all those external ups and downs.
And once you start to internalize that, truly feel it, your whole approach changes to life, to interactions.
Imagine just walking through the world less shaken by criticism, facing uncertainty with a kind of quiet strength, loving people without needing to control them or needing them to be a certain way for you to feel okay.
That's the potential, isn't it? That emerges when you genuinely stop pouring energy into the things that don't actually contribute to your well-being.
And it's really important to remember, based on these insights, letting go doesn't mean you withdraw or become like an emotionless robot.
Right.
It means engaging fully with the world, participating in life, but doing it without being weighed down.
Weighed down by unnecessary attachments, or that corrosive worry, or the desperate need to force things to be a certain way.
It's about finding a balance, caring deeply, absolutely, about what truly aligns with your values, with your inner peace, while consciously choosing to release the countless little things that just drain your energy for no real gain.
So as you're listening and reflecting on these ideas, maybe think about what might be just one thing you're holding on to today.
Yeah, maybe it's a fear. Or an expectation you picked up somewhere that doesn't feel truly yours.
Or just a worry about what other people think, something
Yeah.
that feels like a weight you're carrying.
And then just consider what might actually happen if you decided, even just for a moment, to simply let it go, set it down.
Because looking at this whole perspective, the ultimate wisdom isn't really about trying to conquer life, wrestle it into submission through sheer willpower and control.
It sounds much more like learning to dance with it.
Yeah. Accepting its natural rhythm, its ups and downs, its unpredictability, its imperfections.
And finding your own strength, your own freedom within that flow.
Because maybe, just maybe,
Well,
the moment you stop needing to care so much about the wrong things.
for right things have a chance to find their way to you.